everyone, welcome to Spirit Rescue Talk. My name is Jordan Start, and as always, we have the lovely Amy Major here with us today. We have a really interesting show for all of you as we recognize that a lot of the folks who end up coming to this channel, some might be in the newer phases of their mediumship development, others might be a little bit further along on the path. And I know in my development personally, when I would try to figure out what kind of medium I was, sometimes I could see how I could kind of fall into a box, but not always. And I found sometimes I was connecting with things that no one was really talking about. And then that made me feel really uncomfortable and weird and all the things. And so Amy had the wonderful idea today to talk about all the different forms of mediumship, because not everybody gets recognized when we talk about mediumship. And so we wanted to give a space where we could acknowledge for all of you to see maybe you fall into one or more of these categories.
Yeah. Well, it isn't just about people recognizing themselves as a medium, but the general public recognizing that there are many forms of mediumship out there. And so when someone comes and says, "Oh, I'm a medium," we're not going to immediately assume that they're a psychic evidential medium and that they're there to connect to, loved ones of yours, ancestors, or we'll call family in the light. There are actually many other forms of mediumship out there, which some of them are very new, and a lot of people don't know much about them. I've been around the psychic and spiritual community for about 26 years. And in that time, I've seen a huge change in the different forms of mediumship out there. So I thought, hey, Jordan, we really need to talk about this a little bit more, because, you walk out there, it's hard enough to say that you're a medium, even though it is more accepted these days than ever before. But except for in the way past, where saying you were a medium was actually got you rich and fame and, thousands of years ago. Lately, ever since the witch trials, a lot of people have been very hesitant to say that they're able to communicate with the deceased or anything other than what's here in the third dimension. And I want to say that how grateful we are for the famous mediums that have been in the media, that have been acclimating the general public to mediumship. Most of them are psychic or spiritual mediums. And I think mediumship awareness comes in waves. It comes in many forms of awareness. Slowly it trickles in over time, where the public can become accustomed to hearing that mediumship does exist, that it's normal, that many of us are mediums. And I think now that many people have become more accustomed and comfortable with the concept of mediumship, there's a new wave of consciousness and awareness that's kind of sweeping the planet now, and that are the many different specializations and forms of mediumship that are now starting to be developed. And we talk a lot about it here on this show, rescue mediumship, but there are many other forms as well. And I went online to kind of take a look and see, what are people talking about? And is everybody listing the different forms of mediumship out there? And I was actually greatly disappointed with what I saw. They had 3, maybe 4 forms of mediumship out there. And technically there are 2 forms of mediumship out there, but there are specialties within those forms of mediumship. And that's what we want to discuss tonight. Right, Jordan?
That is absolutely it. And no, Amy, you mentioned the forms of mediumship, but I know in our conversation you wanted to change that term a little bit.
Yes, because, I like changing everything.
You know what? Our consciousness is ascending. We're becoming exposed to new things. It makes sense that the knowledge and the language that we would utilize would need to evolve as well.
Right. Exactly. When you look up mediumship, it does say 2 forms. I was telling Jordan, I think forms is too much of a general term for these 2, what I call modes of mediumship. And I use that term mode of mediumship because it is the mode in which you are connecting to the spirit world. And those 2 modes are physical mediumship and mental mediumship. They are called forms online, but I like to think of them as modes because they are in which how you are processing spirit world through the medium. So we're going to discuss the different modes of mediumship, physical and mental mediumship, which you're going to see there's a lot more mental mediumship out there than there is physical mediumship, because we are mental beings. We are pure consciousness. So because we're consciousness, we are sentient, we are self-aware, we're thinking constantly and using different forms of our consciousness to be able to connect to other forms of not only entities, spirits, and above, but other souls that are here in the third dimension as well. So I like to say mode for mental and physical. And you'll see we have a long list of mental forms and types. I'm going to pull them as types of mediumships. And then you'll see in the types of mediumship, we have specialties, subcategories of mediums as well. Which one would you like to start out with, Jordan?
Well, you mentioned the mental is more, we're more connected to that as a collective. So I'm curious of what would mental be?
Well, mental mediumship is the mode, again, in which a medium receives spirit. So obviously we're thinking of the mind. We're thinking of the psyche. We're thinking of how we're receiving through our consciousness. And mental is a way to receive from the spirit world, where it's mostly coming from the mind. The mind, though, is responsible for many different forms of receiving. And Jordan and I were talking a little bit about the clair abilities, which is your receptivity to reading energy. It is a psychic form of reading energy through different senses that you have. We call our six senses. These senses would be like hearing, sensing, feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling, knowing. All of these different clairs are how we receive. Now, when a medium raises their vibration into the fourth dimension and above, we move out of the psychic senses, we use them, but now we're moving into higher dimensions and receiving from higher dimensions. And that's what puts us in a position of mediumship. It is the big difference between a psychic and a medium. And everyone gets this wrong online. And I don't mean to poke fingers or anything, but as I've been teaching psychic and mediumship for about 20 years now, all of my students must know the pure definition between psychic and mediumship. Should I test Jordan now to see if she knows the difference between
not do that on the show? I'm gonna get all nervous.
So we know psychic reading energy is anyone who can read energy in a third dimension. What's third dimension? Space, time, and matter. All of these forms of reality exist in third dimension. So somebody who receives through their clair abilities to read energy of space, time, and matter is a psychic.
So just to cut in here, an example of that could be, you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I feel like I can't trust this person. There's just something about them that I don't like. But you put it aside because you're like, I don't want to be judgy. I don't want to put something on somebody. I don't even know this person. So you give them a chance. And then a little bit of time comes by and you're like, I knew it. I clocked that from the moment I met this person. And I don't know how I know this, but I just knew it. Psychic.
Yes.
Reading energy in the 3D.
Right. Now, the word intuition is interchangeable sometimes with psychic. The difference, though, is intuition is a gut instinct, feeling, sensation that you have. It's a response to reading energy. Psychic ability is in which how you are going to receive that energy. Are you going to read it through seeing, through sensing, through knowing, through tasting. The psychic sixth sense is how your mental mind is going to receive through your sensitivities. So you can call it intuition, you can call it psychic ability, you can call it being a sensitive. It's really up to you. And then we move into fourth dimension and above. We're now using and bringing all of our psychic ability in with us, elevating our frequency, and now we're reading energy in higher dimensions. And that is what makes you a medium. But now we know we are a medium. What type of medium are we? Well, you have to ask yourself, how are you receiving this? Not just through the clairs, but are you receiving it through your mind, or are you receiving it on a physical level? And we'll talk about that in just a second. So you want to start with mental. We can start with the two most known forms of mediumship out there.
And would that not be our psychic and our spiritual mediumship?
That would be our psychic and our spiritual mediumship. Yes. And so you want to tell everybody what the difference is between psychic and spiritual?
Well, Amy got to give me a lovely class right before that, so I'm cheating a little bit. Because like all of you, looking stuff up, you don't find everything online. And so I'm always so grateful for Amy and her teachings, because she's learned a lot directly from the spirit world as well, and through her years of experience. Amy is a blessing to me, because my brain likes to put things into categories to understand it, which is why she's an excellent teacher. So from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but a psychic medium is more through like their development of, and the spiritual versus how they developed into their mediumship. So psychic being more through development of their clair abilities, receiving information through the clairs, versus spiritual would be more through like meditation, prayer, divine inspiration, etc., etc.
Right.
Church.
Psychic mediums probably learn mediumship through psychic channels, through psychic centers or development circles where they focus on the enhancement of their clair abilities first. They may learn the foundation of psychic abilities and then all of a sudden raise their vibration into the spirit world, and they're using their psychic skills to be able to connect to the spirit world. Whereas as far as spiritual mediumship goes, they don't really focus on the clairs. They don't focus on reading energy in the third dimension. They go straight into spirit world. You're going to see a lot of this in spiritualist churches or other churches where they do focus on connecting to spirit or source. They go into prayer, affirmations, mantras, chanting, meditation. They raise their vibration to connect to divine source and spirit in the light without really focusing on psychic abilities to enhance, to connect to the spirit world. So it is how the medium develops, which focus determines what type of medium they are, psychic or spiritual medium.
Now, could somebody technically be both?
Like me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where the first 10 years of my development, I started as a psychic medium, developing through a psychic center in New Hampshire, developing my clairs, reading tarot cards, learning meditation, learning to be able to read energy through psychometry, pictures, reading other people in front of me. Then I started going into meditative circles, raising my vibration and connecting to the spirit world. And then everybody knows my story of being brushed with earthbound spirits. That's a whole other story. But then I also started going to a spiritualist church. They didn't focus on tarot cards. They didn't focus on reading energy in the third dimension. They didn't focus on psychometry as much. They do now, but not as much back then. A long time ago, when I was developing, we sat in development circles which focused on meditation and prayer and connecting the divine God source, infinite intelligence. From there, we then brought spirit down, was able to receive mentally and to give divine inspirational messages through the Spiritualist Church. So I was able to look at it from both modes, both ways, to receive spirit into which focus I wanted to go into. To be honest with you, there really is no difference. Medium is a medium. We connect to spirit. We all have to do the same steps to get there. It just, do you want to focus spiritually or do you want to focus psychically? It's really up to you. I do both.
And I think that's something important to note, especially going forward in this conversation, that just because you're one thing doesn't mean that you're only one thing. You can be many things.
Many, many, many. Yes, very much. And then we see a lot of titles where people say, I'm a clairvoyant medium. I'm a clairsentient medium. I'm a clairaudient medium. And people are like, well, what do they mean by that? That it would be a psychic medium that only receives or mostly receives through that particular clairability. So someone says they're a clairvoyant medium, that's through the third eye, seeing spirit. They're going to rely on what they see from the spirit world. Images, pictures, objects, they're going to see in their mind's eye, and sometimes with their physical eye if they're a really great clairvoyant medium, but they're going to see in their mind's eye images from the spirit world, and then they're going to give you the images that they see to see if it makes sense and provides evidence of that spirit to you. A clairaudient medium, such as myself to begin with on my spiritual journey, Jordan probably too, is that we hear spirit. So we're hearing words, we're hearing phrases, we're hearing footsteps or bells ringing, we're hearing messages from the spirit world. So they would say we're a clairaudient medium, and this is what I'm receiving through what I'm hearing. So if a medium goes out and says, this is the type of medium I am, and it's a clair ability, starts with the word clair and ends with another word, they're using their sixth sense to be able to receive from the spirit world, and that's how they're going to provide the message to you. So.
Makes sense. I see a lot of that when I go to different psychic fairs where you see a whole bunch of different people, and you'll see different people label themselves as, I'm the clairsentient medium, I'm the clairvoyant medium. And it doesn't mean that that's the only clair that they have. It just might be the one that they're identifying with more or is a stronger ability of theirs.
We call it the dominant clair. The dominant clair will run the show. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to receive in other ways to be supporting the dominant clair ability. So I may see first and then hear a little bit and then sense and feel as well. Most mediums run on multiple clairs at the same time. So I think it's a great way to receive, because the more clairs you are receiving from, the bigger the picture, the more information you can get. So I think it's a lot of fun to be able to use as many as possible. And don't be surprised if your dominant clair ability changes throughout your development and your career as a medium, because I started as a clairaudient medium. And then, of course, me being really stubborn, asking my guides to be able to see more, which was a bad choice.
I did the exact same thing.
Not the greatest thing.
Not a good choice.
We'll discuss that in a bit. I started seeing a lot more. And then I'm like, turn it off. And so now I see just as much as I hear, sense, feel, taste. The tasting clairgustance is what we call it, is a wonderful form of receiving from the spirit world, as long as it's chocolate chip cookies and spaghetti and meatballs. But when you start getting into other forms of receiving, such as you're picking up on someone that may have been murdered, we start getting sensations of blood, vomit, pus, other bodily fluids, the smell of gunpowder through, clear aliens, the smelling. We start picking up on other sensations that may not be as pleasant. Can we shut it off? No, we cannot. We will receive what the spirit sends to us. So if you ever see a medium and they're receiving and all of a sudden they have a really weird look on their face, Ask them what they just picked up on. They'll be happy to show you. I love it when I talk to the Italian grandmothers on the other side. They're so good. The smells and tastes are fantastic. So any of my Italian clients want to bring their Italian grandmothers my way, I'm all for it. Thank you. But there are other forms of mediumship out there. I'm going to make Jordan laugh all night. So one term that a lot of mediums are saying these days, which was technically already assumed in psychic and spiritual mediumship, but has now become a title of form of mediumship to, I think, emphasize this even more. And that's what we call evidential mediumship. And do you want to tell a little bit about evidential mediumship, Jordan?
Yeah. So evidential mediumship is actually one of the first ones I read about when I started looking into what type of medium I was. Again, there wasn't a lot of resources out there, so y'all were in for a treat. But evidential mediumship is a medium who's connecting with quite possibly somebody that you know, or a family or loved one, et cetera, and trying to bring in as much evidence through the details that this is who they're bringing forward. It's not as much about the message. It's more for proving that this person who stepped forward is that person. So you might get a name. You might get their favorite food. You might get a very specific memory. You might get exactly what they used to wear. There's a lot of detail.
Right.
Lots of detail.
But evidential mediums focus solely on the details.
Yeah.
To the point where they've been trained to gather at least 15 to 20 details of that spirit so that you know without a doubt that's who it is. They rely less on the message or educating the public about the spirit world, or even saying this is what the spirit's doing on the other side. They don't really go into that detail. It's all about detail, detail, detail. So evidential mediums are great when it comes to proving in the existence of life after death. We need that evidence so that people here in the physical world can trust that it is actually that spirit, and they can be relied on knowing that that medium is actually connecting to that spirit. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. But psychic and spiritual mediumship go a little further than that. They start with evidence, providing in maybe 3 to 5 details of the spirit. Once we have gathered enough information where what we call the sitter, or the person you're reading for, says, Eureka, I know what you're talking about. I know this spirit. I know exactly who you're talking about. Once we get that message, once we get that verbal okay from your sitter, we then back up and don't worry so much about collecting evidence as much as we want to. We now start going into more details, such as, what does that spirit want this person to know? We become the voice of the spirit. So now we're trying to collect as much as we can what that spirit wants this person, their loved one, to know, how they're doing on the other side, what the other side looks like, anything that they're seeing that their person is doing here. Are they having a baby? Are they getting married? Did they just graduate high school? They're saying things that prove that they're paying attention. They're still very much involved in your life, and they know what's going on, and they're present for those wonderful experiences that you have. And then we can go even further and start talking about what's the spirit doing, what's keeping their time. Do they have a job? Are they going back to school? What did it look like on the other side? Who did they meet and greet with when they got back to heaven? A psychic and spiritual medium can start getting more information that can not only prove in the continuity of life after death, but help in the grieving process. Because when the person you're reading for knows that they're alive and well on the other side, they're still playing soccer, they're still cooking, they're still fishing, they're still doing their wonderful hobbies that they love doing, and they're happy, that really helps with the grieving process to know that your loved one is doing just fine on the other side. So I think psychic and spiritual medium just go that extra mile Not saying evidential medium isn't important, but they kind of combine everything together.
They do. And I mean, I also want to acknowledge that every sitter might need something different, right? Like I've had clients when they've come forward where I've naturally kind of stepped into more evidential, which isn't my normal way of doing readings. But just giving them that evidence, I could see them getting really emotional, really overwhelmed. And then I realized, oh, this is why I intuitively stepped in that realm. Because I think if I would have gone into that, it would have been a little bit too much. Different people need different types of mediumship at different phases of their journey, right? And so one thing that I wanted to acknowledge that throughout all these different forms of mediumship, they're all needed in different moments, in different scenarios, and in different cases. So one is not above the other. They're just all different, and they all meet different needs of the collective.
Different piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
That's all it is. And everyone is trained in a different way because we're all supposed to do it in a different way. Because all the clients and all the people that we read for all need to receive in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So there are no mediums that are better than anyone else. And I'm a firm believer in that. There might be some that are better at evidence than other mediums, but maybe that sitter, maybe that person doesn't need as much evidence. Maybe they just want to hear how the spirit's doing. And that's okay too.
Yep.
So, but we have other forms of mediumship to discuss, a lot more forms of mediumship out there. We like to think of this as inspirational channeling or mediumship. And this is a form of mediumship that I'm pretty sure everyone has done. Even all of you that say, there's no way I'm a medium. Nope, I've never done this, never connected to a spirit my whole life. Well, you probably haven't didn't know it. Do you want to discuss a little bit about inspirational mediumship? Because I know you've done this a few times in your life, Jordan.
It's funny because this is the form of mediumship, like you were saying, that when I talk about mediumship and what it is, people connect to it when they never thought they were a medium. They never would have identified themselves as such. But in discussing this form of mediumship, they're like, oh, I've done that before, which is essentially you're able to channel through divine messages from divine sources. And so I know, like in my counseling job, long before I knew I was a medium, I would have a client in front of me and I'd be talking to them, I'd be counseling them. And then all of a sudden, I would just start talking. I didn't know what was coming out of my mind. I didn't know what was going to come out next out of my mouth. I had no idea. And then it was almost like I would be kind of like out of it for a second. And I'd look at the person and they were bawling their eyes out. They'd be like, oh my God, that is exactly what I needed to hear. You hit so many things. That was so healing for me. Can you repeat that? And I would go, nope. I don't know what just came out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd be trying to backtrack and figure it out. Because what I didn't realize was that I was connecting to a source on the other side that was coming in to give messages of hope, inspiration, of love, guidance that wasn't coming from me. It was coming from somebody on the other side to give to this person. And I didn't know I was channeling at the time. I used to do that all the time in my counseling.
Right.
And I meet so many counselors that do the exact same thing, or doctors or nurses, those in healing professions, teachers.
Well, it's interesting how you can be in the right place at the right time talking to the right person and you say just the right thing. It's exactly what they needed to hear, exactly when they needed to hear it. And then if you're thinking to yourself, why did I just say that? Or how did I know to say that? And you see how it affected someone, that's an inspirational channel. That's an inspirational form of mediumship. Because as souls connected to our higher selves and the spirit world all the time, we are always receiving. We are always channeling. We are always downloading information from the spirit world, whether you know you're a medium or not. And spirit loves opportunity. They really do. You walk around, you're having a discussion, you happen to turn the wrong way. Maybe you're walking down the street like, why am I here? We're like little avatars that the spirit world likes to kind of use. Oh, they're in the right place at the right time. Hit her. Give her the right form. Give her the right message. And you just start talking. It just starts coming out of you. This happens a lot. Ministers, priests, teachers, people that give speeches, anyone that's sitting and talking in a group activity. I remember the first time years ago when I recognized I was channeling and did not intentionally try to channel. And I was in a class. I started teaching about 17, 18 years ago, psychic development. And I was in a class and I was teaching my students, and I started noticing my voice started quickening. And then I started feeling like the time was slowing down, but the words were coming out faster. And I was feeling lighter and lighter and lighter as I was discussing things. And then all of a sudden I just stopped. And I thought, and I'm like, with what I just said, it shocked me. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And my students look at me like, what do you mean you didn't know that? I'm like, I literally did not know that before the words just came out of my mouth.
Yep.
And it was really something profound. And they're like, yeah, it was really great. I'm like, I guess I'm channeling because I didn't know the answer before I said it. It was just like came right out of me. And that's when I recognized, oh, little buggers up there are using me as a tool. Divine inspirational message. And Spirit goes, yeah, we do this so much more than you realize. So all of you are mediums for inspirational messages. You always wonder, how did I just know how to say the right thing at the right time? Because you're a medium. You didn't know it. And it's a wonderful form of mediumship, I think.
It really is. And I know, like, in times, like, when I think back to when I was younger, it wasn't always super light messages. Sometimes it was more in heavier conversations, but I knew how to express that message in the way that would land the best on the person in order to help them through a tough moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that can also be that too, because it isn't, sometimes we need to hear something or we need guidance on really tough moments and situations. And you don't know how you gave that message to somebody in such a way, because maybe it was really nervous. Maybe it was a really heavy, you're like, I'm not the expert on this. You need to go talk to somebody, but you just knew what to say and it just popped out. Right. And it made a difference for somebody.
Very much so. Some people call this inspirational mediumship. Other people will call this inspirational channeling. It really all depends on where in the world they're discussing it. Because we were also discussing wherever you are in the world, they have different terms. Whatever is according to their expectation and their understanding of that type of mediumship. And it's okay. We can all use different terms. And the spirit world's like, yeah, it's okay. You all speak a different language. But it should all hold the same foundation and the same truth. Another form of mediumship isn't necessarily how they receive it, but what they do with it. So there's something called divine art mediums, or mediums that specialize in spirit drawings. So they're receiving from the spirit world mostly clairvoyantly, remember, the psychic eye, and they're seeing images in their clairvoyance, and then what they're doing is they're drawing the spirit and the images that they're seeing so that you can see physical proof of what they're seeing in their psychic eye. I know many mediums, and Jordan, you do a little bit of spiritual art yourself. Do you want to tell people how you receive in that way?
So what's interesting, so when I've done it, it's sometimes I've had a spirit come in, I'll get little bits of the detail and I'll see it, as Amy said, like clairvoyantly, and it's sometimes I'll get into like a trance state and I'll just start drawing and I don't really know what's going to happen next or where we're going. And then I'll kind of like step back out of it and look at it and have this beautiful picture there. But I've also met other mediums who do engage in this type of mediumship where they'll pass messages through their art. So there's one medium I met in particular where she does a lot of like henna art on people, and she'll get messages through and she'll have spirits come in to give them, and she'll draw them sometimes, but other times it's an animal spirit that's coming through that's for a message for them, and she'll do this elaborate artwork on people. It's beautiful. And anytime I've spoken to the client afterwards, they're like, no, like everything that she told me was exactly what I needed to hear. But then she'll also do artwork too, where she'll see the spirit, she'll get the details of the spirit. They'll essentially tell her who they are, and she'll draw the picture of them. And I've seen people who do that with guide messages as well, spirits that are just hanging around a person as well. It's pretty amazing, the
It
ability.
is. It is really. And, you know, you don't have to be an artist to do it.
No.
It does help to have some artistic ability. Otherwise, you'll be drawing stick figures saying, this is a guy. You know, that would be me. You know, so if you do have any artistic ability at all, I think it's something to look into, because we're always needing more spiritual artists that are out there to do spiritual drawings. There are some that actually will draw your spirit animals, or animals that are in the spirit world as well. These are what we call animal communicators, and they can communicate with animals that are here in the physical world and the spiritual world. So there are some mediums that only want to talk to animals on the other side. Can you blame them? Animals are great. So they really want to focus on just connecting to your pets that are on the other side, so you can be reassured that they're doing well. But a lot of these animal communicators can use their mediumship, but also psychic ability interchangeably, which most of us can do. It all depends on vibration. Are they going to vibrate at a denser vibration to connect to the animal that's still here? Or are they going to raise their vibration to connect to the animal in the light? You're going to have to ask your animal communicator what they're able to do. But that is another form of mediumship as well. Another type of mediumship, one of my favorite, is rescue mediumship. Now, psychic and spiritual mediums really focus 100% on connecting to spirit in what we call the light, the other side, heaven, divine source, whatever you want to call it. These mediums raise their vibration to connect to spirit in the light that have crossed over. They provide this information to relay messages from the light so people can be relieved of their grief, to heal, and to have proof of the afterlife. Rescue mediums don't focus on any of that. Rescue mediums actually connect to spirits that are still in the transitionary states of crossing over. They may have just slowed down their progression of moving into the light because they're anchored through many of their wounds, their fears, their anxiety, their attachments. And so a lot of people call these spirits earthbound spirits or ghosts. You can use whichever one you want. Rescue mediums focus on connecting to these souls that haven't made the full transition into the light. And we counsel them, we help with them, we work with their spirit team, and try to get them to understand that they need to move into light to continue with their spiritual journey. Jordan and I are both rescue mediums as well as psychic mediums, and we always need more. So if you want to learn more about rescue mediumship, come find us. We're happy to talk about it. But there is another form of mediumship that we're really excited to talk about. It is one of the newer forms of mediumship out there, but it has so many subcategories in it because it is such an expansive form of mediumship. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Jordan?
Yeah, for sure. And then there's one more, I think that's more in the 3D that I think we can talk about at the end, maybe, or do we want to do that one now?
You mean the physical?
Well, I'm thinking more of our earth mediums before we get into the complex of all of our subcategories.
Okay, we could talk a little bit about the earth mediums, which I know sounds, like an oxymoron. Like, what? Huh?
Earth medium? You're connecting with the spirit world when we're down here on Earth.
Earth mediums really focus going down, not up. Earth mediums focus on connecting to Gaia, which is the consciousness of the earth, which is still a consciousness, and elementals that are connected to the energy consciousness of the earth. So elementals are fourth dimensional beings that exist in our third dimensional world to take care, they're caretakers of our world and to work with Gaia. So we have mediums that actually specialize in only talking to Gaia and these elementals and other nature spirits that are here to be caretakers and nurturers of the earth. And we have many mediums that do just that work as well.
And some of these mediums can even talk to the consciousness of the elements themselves, which is really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Energy is energy. And if it has a consciousness, you can talk to it.
And then we've got our interdimensional medium.
Interdimensional mediumship. Dun, dun, dun. One of the bigger forms of mediumship that is really coming out right now. And I bet a lot of you out there are going to be like, oh, I do that. Yes, you probably do. Just because of the ascension of the vibration of the planet, we're now tapping into other forms of entities that are beyond the fourth dimension. This would bring you into interdimensional mediumship. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and so as me and Amy were talking about it, I remember poor Amy. As we were going through all the ones we were going to talk to, I'm like, would that not be considered interdimensional? Would that not be considered interdimensional? And so we were kind of talking is how interdimensional can kind of be seen as an umbrella term. There's many specific types of mediumship that could fall under this category depending on your personal attunement and your vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
So just to put that out there, it's an umbrella term because there's many specializations under that. And so one of the first ones we kind of talked about was the angelic realm, mediums who connect with the angelics and angelic beings. Yes. And I believe we're maybe going to be bringing somebody on who has that ability as well, which is very exciting.
It is very exciting. You will know an angelic medium, hands down. They carry a much higher vibration. Their aura is much brighter. There's just a softness, a glow to them, almost like an unconditional love that is just coming from their aura. Because angelics are of a higher frequency of love consciousness, these mediums have to channel and attune to that vibration. So these mediums are going to feel very angelic themselves and feel very drawn to angels. You're probably an angelic interdimensional medium, which is a wonderful thing to be. Very jealous because I think it's awesome.
It's lovely. Every time an angelic being comes in, their energy is intense, but it's so lovely.
It is so lovely. It really is. You just want, it's a chocolate chip cookie, a warm blanket on a rainy day, putting your feet up going, oh, this feels so good.
Especially for those of us on rescue, we're like, oh, bring more, bring more.
Yes.
Bring more. Let me hang out here for a little bit.
Really, it really is. So the angelic. We also have
our starseed mediums.
Starseed mediums. Yes. Now you do not have to be a starseed here in order to talk to celestial beings that we call starseeds or star beings in other star systems. You can be a medium that just raises your vibrational attunement and be able to communicate with them. But it really makes things a lot easier if you are a starseed because you already carry the natural attunement to those locations. And so you're probably already carrying a divine channel through you already. So you would make a wonderful interdimensional medium connected to star seeds, star systems, star solar systems. This would be the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, Orion star seeds, the Andromedans. These would be higher forms of divine beings that are here to help us in the greater ascension of our planet. So again, kudos to you, very high vibrational frequency. These mediums are so high, they can't connect to mom, dad, aunt, uncle in the spirit world. They're going into higher dimensions. So they're coming in to channel divine information, light language, geometric shapes, inspirational messages from these cosmic beings, technology, you name it, they're bringing this information to our world. Very much needed.
And then we've also got, as I'm looking on our list here, our non-human entity mediums. It's a little bit dark. It's a little bit darker there.
It's going in a different direction for sure, but still interdimensional. Entities of a more sinister, darker vibration, denser vibration is still in other dimensions. And so we do have mediums that can connect to these forms, not to play around, not to have a party, but to connect to them, to understand spiritual law, to serve as protectors, guides, educators, to get people to understand about these forms of entities, and hopefully maybe even healers of some of those entities as well. So if you feel you attract the dark a little bit more than you think you should, you might be a non-human entity medium, which a lot of people like this go into something called demonology. If they start going into the Catholic faith, go into exorcisms. But there are many different forms of non-human entities that aren't intelligent or sentient, but rather what we call manifested thought forms, many different forms of manifested energy. These
Even
medium
manifested entities from the collective consciousness.
Yes, they can go in and read the energy from these as well, because they do have a limited form of consciousness, not sentient in a way to know that they are from, God's source, but rather created from another source, such as a human, and their thought projections. So that goes into more detail. You want to ask a non-human entity medium what type of work that they do, and thank them for their service, because it's a very difficult job, for sure. So thank you, Jordan, for your service.
Thank you, Amy, for your service.
Can we go into the more higher ones now, the ones that feel a little bit better?
Yeah, they feel so much nicer.
So, lastly, the last form of mental mediumship, which is one of my favorite, and I do this almost on a daily basis with my clients through energy work. These are healing mediums. Healing mediums are more channelers, but we can receive outside of us to divine messages, messages on how to help someone heal. But then we move into the mode of channeling, receiving from the spirit world, where divine healing source channels through us and usually out our hands or out our aura into the person in need of healing. And so we actually become conduits of that healing vibration to raise the vibrational frequency inside of someone, their body, their energy, their mind, their emotions, to start shifting the awareness, consciousness, and the vibration of that person so they can choose to heal. Notice I said choose to heal, because healing is a choice. A healer, as a medium, never chooses for somebody else to heal. We can inspire them to heal through a higher vibration, but your person in need of healing needs to make the conscious decision to heal. They have to accept the healing vibration and then put the effort in to keep that high vibration moving through their body so their body can naturally heal on its own. So a lot of people call it miracle healing. It's really not a miracle, even though it feels like a miracle. It is divine, inspired, high frequency energy channeled through a medium into a person that carries wounding, whether it be mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, or physical, or karmic. The healing medium can help that person heal by channeling the right vibration to allow that person to make the conscious choice to let go of that dense vibration, be inspired to move into a higher vibration and heal on their own. So, but we have many other forms of healing, like inspirational channel, which we were talking about before. Counselors, they become divine messengers through that inspirational communication. So that is a healing medium, in a way. So we could use different forms of mediumship interchangeably according to what is actually needed during that session. So, can you think of any other mental form of mediumship? There's a lot. There's a lot out there.
Nothing else comes to mind. Was
If any
there
of you can think of any
materialism, transfiguration? We talked about that earlier a little bit.
We're going to talk about that next.
Physical.
That's physical mediumship,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun.
We went through our list. We're doing
We
pretty
went
good.
through our list.
Went through our list. At least the one half of it list.
There'll be more. So we talked about the two modes, mental and physical. We're now going to move into the physical form. It's a much smaller, much shorter list than mental mediumship because, again, we rely on consciousness, mental receptivity of how we're receiving from the spirit world. Now, physical mediums, yes, that doesn't mean they're not using their mind. They absolutely are using their mind, but they're receiving in a different way. It's most likely through their energy field instead of just their mind. Physical mediums actually become conduits themselves to allow spirit energy to come in and manipulate or enhance the vibrational attunement of the medium's energy field, which is what we call aura. In the aura, a thickening starts to occur when the mediums start blending with the spirit world. In that thickening, there's something called ectoplasma. That ectoplasma is an ethereal form, a membrane in which the medium can then start creating in their energy field to allow spirit to come in and physically manifest in some way, shape, or form to show you in a physical way that they exist. It is a harder form of mediumship, and it takes a lot longer to develop, but provides some of the best evidence mediumship has ever provided. So anyone out there that feels certain things, such as the lights flicker a lot when I walk into a room. I notice things shift around or vibrate around me, like a bookcase shaking when I'm around it. I disturb electrical devices whenever I'm around them. Sound familiar? Like we're having glitching with our computer system.
You know, my lights are always flashing in and out and getting brighter and lights. Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. You may notice that things appear or disappear around you often. This is because you're probably a physical medium. And the spirit world is working through you because your energy field is expanding, probably greater than you know. And if your energy field is starting to work and start to gather that thickness, then things can actually start happening in your energy field, such as disturbing or enhancing or changing your environment around you. Now, there are two ways or two types of physical mediumship. First one, Jordan?
We have materialism.
Materialization, yes.
Which is what you were mentioning a little bit before about how objects can kind of move or appear or disappear by utilizing the ectoplasm of the medium.
Yes. So a medium can sit in a spirit circle, physical mediumship circle. The mediums together can form an energetic resonance with each other, and their energy fields start to expand into the whole circle. Think of it like a big bubble of energy, of thick ectoplasmic layers of vibrational attunement and the energy of the mediums. It becomes like a portal in a way. Things can materialize inside that circle, such as physical objects. Sounds can materialize, like the sound of a trumpet. You can use items and they can be moved around in the physical circle. Things can just appear, like your car keys, because you always wonder where the heck those things go. Things will just appear and then they'll disappear. Now
could an apparition appear? And
An
that is
apparition can appear, yes. You'll start to see orbs, sparks of light, sounds, appearances. You're going to see apparitions. You could see half an apparition or a full apparition. You may see spirit hands on someone's shoulder. You're just going to start seeing more of a semi-physical presence of spirit there.
So if a person, because I'm just curious, if a person who was in this circle who generally doesn't see things, would they also be able to see it then too?
Depends on the medium.
Okay.
Really does. If the physical circle is very strong, anybody will be able to see them.
Wow.
Now, quite often they'll use something called a red light, and they'll darken the room, create a red light that allows the eyes to be able to see better of spiritual activity. And it does create a little bit of a shift of vibration in the environment to enhance the experience as well. Last thing that a physical medium can do is something called transfiguration. And this is where the spirit gets a little weird, but it's not that scary. It can be very fun. But where a medium can, again, the thickening of their energy field will allow a spirit to channel through them, and you'll actually start seeing physical apparition or the figuration of a face or a body or the whole apparition in that medium's aura. As if the spirit is now on top, layered on top of the medium, and their face is now morphing into the face of the spirit. A lot of mediums study and develop that in something called spirit boxes, or again, seances, or spaces where they can have that thickening effect of their energetic layers to allow spirit to morph in a semi-physical way. It's really wonderful. Now, it gets a bad rap because in the Victorian era, there were a lot of mediums that were scamming people. They were trying to create sensations of physical mediumship because they were really trying to get people to believe in the spirit world. It became quite a bit of a hoax over time, which is why I believe mediums went to mental mediumship, because they were starting to lose the credibility of physical mediumship during that time. But physical mediumship was actually a lot more popular than it is today. I see physical mediumship coming back around, and there are many mediums sitting in physical mediumship circles, and they're learning to really gather and go building of the energy so that spirit can then use it so we can see physical manifestations again. It's very exciting.
Well, as you said, cycles kind of continue to happen, right? Where one becomes more popular than another. And I would imagine that, what our collective is ready for will also shift those things as well. Because I think about the Victorian era, that wasn't that far after the witch trials. If you were, come across this guy, I'm not a witch. I didn't do anything wrong. See, it was all fake. Right. So I could see there be a level of protection for even if it was wrong to scam. I can see the bigger picture why at certain times, depending on what we as a collective are ready for, could shift what types of mediumship start to present themselves more.
Yes.
As you said, with the ascension process happening, I'm not surprised that we're getting more and more of the different forms of interdimensional mediumship.
Exactly. Now we can combine interdimensional mediumship with physical mediumship. Aha, that would be interesting. To allow the materialization of these high cosmic beings. I don't know. Something to think about. I'm not going to do it.
We're only evolving. Who knows where we're going to go next?
As we evolve, as we change. And again, these are just forms of mediumship we have right now. As we change, society changes, we ascend into different frequencies and attunements. Who knows what forms of mediumship we'll be able to do in the future. It's very exciting. But the biggest thing to take away from all of this, other than the fact that mediumship is changing, evolving, and expanding, is that many of us are mediums, even when we don't know it. Because I asked my guides a long time ago, I said, so does a medium have to be born, and is it a rarity, or why are we mediums? Why was I born a medium? And they really kind of implied that it was silly of us to think that we're not all mediums and that this is something that you have to be born with the gift for. And they said, all you're doing is you're waking up to who you truly are. Everyone on this planet is a medium, a channel, connection to the spirit world. It all depends on how much effort and focus you really want to put into that divine connection. It's really up to you. You don't have to be a working medium in order to learn how receptive you are and how to receive from the spirit world. You can make it a very personal choice for you and just learn to attune and talk to your guides, talk to your relatives, make it personal because you have the ability to do that. Mediumship is one soul talking to another soul. Really. So if we can do it here in the physical world telepathically, we can do it in the spirit world too. So something to think about. So
I think we had a great conversation.
We did. Just about to say we had a great conversation. Lots of information. Again, this is information that I know that I've received over the last 26 years. It's not everything. I can't know everything. But I think it's a great starting point to see where we might be growing. You got to look at your past to know what your future looks like. And hopefully make it better. Make mediumship better. Do what we can. Become better mediums. Don't focus so much on the fact of, oh, I have to get all this evidence, and oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. If you're not that type of medium, then focus on what you're good at. Because we all have different attunements. We all come with different contracts. We all come with different missions. Figure out what you're attracting. Figure out what you're passionate about. And then focus on that. It's not one size fits all. And it won't ever be again. So explore. Reach out to us if you have any questions about your abilities. We might be able to help guide you on your journey as well.
And you can do that by emailing us at thespiritrescuetalk@gmail.com or comment below. We love hearing the comments.
We do. I think we had a great time today. And more to come. I believe we have a guest coming on next week to talk about her energy healing work. And for those of you that do have questions, concerns, email us, but feel free to leave your comments below as well. We'd love to hear from you. So,
and if you're a medium who falls into one of these categories and you do this work as well, reach out to us. We here at the Spirit Rescue Talk, and part of the creation of this platform was to give a voice to all the different ways that people do this work because it is so diverse. So reach out.
It is. Yes. Reach out, connect, and we can't wait to see you next time.